Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, you sent us some interesting stuff about Spanish legal services, and well, that got us thinking about contracts
Yeah.
and how they work. So we found these excerpts from Texto Pegado.
Okay.
It's a document all about Spanish contracts, and well, we're gonna break it all down for you today. And you know what? Even if you're not in Spain,
Right.
these core principles, they can be really useful.
Yeah.
No matter where you are. I mean, who knew contract law could be so fascinating?
Well, it's more common than you might think. Texto pegado.
Right.
Actually, it comes from this law firm in Spain, MCHM Abogados,
Okay.
and they handle like all sorts of legal stuff, a whole range. They've even got their contact info right here,
Oh, wow.
like phone, email, address,
Great.
all listed. So if you're ever in Spain and you need some help, legal help, you
Yeah.
can just check them out.
That's really handy. But okay, let's get back to the point here. What is a contract? I mean, we encounter them every day. Yeah.
Really,
All the time, yeah.
without even realizing it.
Yeah, you can think of a contract as a legally binding agreement. It's basically just a way to set up like clear expectations
Right.
and consequences for everybody who's involved. According to this document, contracts in Spain, it's like most places, you know, they can create, they can modify, they can even end obligations between people. And this applies to whether they're, you know, written down or just agreed on verbally.
So even that time I promised my friend I'd bake her a cake for her birthday.
Uh-huh.
That's technically a contract.
Yeah, you could argue that. Yeah, of course, written contracts are usually better, especially when things get a little more complicated.
Yep.
You know, it avoids all those he said, she said situations. Can you imagine like trying to rent an apartment just based on a handshake?
Oh, that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So speaking of things going wrong,
Right.
our source mentions 3 like really important elements of a contract under Spanish law. Okay. Consent, object, and cause.
Right.
Let's start with consent. I mean, it sounds pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
but I have a feeling there's more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely. Consent is it's way more than just saying yes. You know?
Right.
It means that everyone involved is getting into this agreement, you know, freely, consciously, and like really understanding what they're getting into. No coercion, no trickery.
Right.
Just a genuine agreement.
That makes you think about all those times you just click agree online
Oh, yeah.
to those terms and conditions without even reading them.
Yeah, that's a great example of where you know, informed consent might be missing. And sometimes those terms and conditions, they got some sneaky clauses in there, things you would never agree to if you actually knew about them.
Yeah.
You know?
This reminds me of the time I signed up for this free trial online.
Yeah. Completely forgot about it, and then months later, bam, this huge charge on my credit card. I never even used the service.
Oh, no.
And you know, buried in all that text, there it was.
Yeah.
This auto renewal clause that I totally missed.
Wow.
Yeah. Lesson learned the hard way, let me tell you.
Oof. Yeah, and that's exactly why understanding, like, the details of consent is so important. Texto Pagado even mentions these things called vices of consent.
The faces of consent.
Yeah, things like error, violence,
Oh.
intimidation, or deceit, like fraud,
Mhm.
that can actually make a contract invalid
Wow.
under Spanish law.
So if someone is like forced or tricked into a contract,
Yeah.
it might not hold up in court.
That's the general idea. Consent has got to be genuine for the contract to be like legally sound.
Right.
It's all about, you know, protecting people from being taken advantage of.
This is getting really interesting. So consent is about like ensuring a level playing field.
Yeah.
Genuine agreement. What about the next element, this object of a contract?
Okay, so the object is basically the specific thing that the parties are agreeing to.
Okay.
It has to be something lawful, possible,
Uh-huh.
and determined, or at least determinable.
Okay.
Essentially, you can't have a contract for something that's illegal,
Right.
or impossible, or so vague that nobody even knows what it means.
So like I can't contract someone to build me a time machine
Yeah.
or steal the crown jewels.
Probably not, no.
Oh, bummer. But I get why that makes sense
Yeah.
legally. What about that determined or determinable part? What does that mean, like practically speaking?
It means the object needs to be like clearly specified.
Okay.
Or at least, you know, there's a way to figure it out later on.
Okay.
If you agree to like buy a large quantity of something without defining what large actually means,
Right.
that could lead to problems down the road.
Yeah.
Some disputes.
So I need to be specific about what I'm agreeing to.
Yeah.
No vague terms. I can see how that's important to avoid misunderstandings, especially like in business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in business dealing.
And make sure everyone's like on the same page from the beginning.
Right from the start. Okay, and then finally we have this third element, cause, which delves into the underlying reason for the contract.
Yeah.
It's like asking, why are we even making this agreement in the first place?
Exactly.
Cause. That sounds a bit philosophical.
Yeah.
Do contracts need some kind of like deeper meaning beyond the practical terms?
Not necessarily philosophical.
Okay.
But it does need to be, legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
The cause has got to be lawful and moral.
Mm.
You can't have a contract for something illegal like smuggling or something that goes against like what's considered morally acceptable.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. But what about those situations where the cause isn't so clear-cut? Like, what's the real cause behind buying a cup of coffee? I mean, on the surface, it's just a simple transaction.
Right.
But I'm sure there could be, like, deeper motivations at play.
You've got a point there. On the surface, it seems pretty simple.
Yeah.
You're thirsty, you want coffee.
Right.
But what if you're meeting a potential investor?
Mm-hmm.
And that coffee is actually your chance to make $1 million deal.
Oh, wow.
Suddenly the cause just got way more complex.
Yeah, that's a great example.
Yeah.
It's like there's this whole other layer of causes behind, everything we do every day.
Hidden causes.
So if the cause is unlawful or it goes against what's morally acceptable, could that make a contract like voidable?
Absolutely.
Even if everything else seems okay.
Yeah, and sometimes those hidden causes, they can become like really important if there's a dispute over the contract.
Yeah.
It's a good reminder that contracts aren't just about what's written on the paper.
Right.
It's about the intentions.
Uh-huh.
The motivations behind them.
Wow. This is blowing my mind. So we've got consent.
Yeah.
Making sure everyone's on board.
Yeah.
Willingly, knowingly.
Uh-huh.
We've got the object, the specific thing that everyone's agreeing on, which needs to be legal, possible, and clear.
Yep.
And then we've got the cause, the underlying reason for the contract, which also needs to be lawful and morally sound.
Exactly.
Got it. All three of these, they're like the foundation of any valid contract.
Right.
You take one away, and the whole thing could just collapse.
The whole thing falls apart.
This is incredibly insightful. It's like we're peeling back the layers of contract law and discovering this whole world of nuance and complexity.
It gets pretty deep.
It does. And this is already making me rethink how I approach agreements.
Yeah.
Even informal ones.
I think that's the point.
Yeah.
Understanding all this isn't just about like avoiding getting in trouble legally. It's about, empowering yourself to navigate the world of agreements with more
confidence.
Yeah, confidence and awareness.
I already feel more empowered.
Good.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Before we jump into like the practical applications,
okay,
let's take a closer look at Spanish legal services and MCHM Abogados.
Okay,
what can we learn from their approach, and how does Spanish contract law compare to other systems?
Yeah, good question. Looking at MCHM Abogados, what really stands out is their focus on client satisfaction.
Yeah,
they really emphasize like their personalized approach, their experience in all these different areas of law, and even like they've got extended business hours.
Oh, wow.
So it seems like they're really dedicated to making the whole legal process less intimidating for their clients.
That's really interesting. It seems like they're going beyond that typical lawyer stereotype and really focusing on building like relationships.
Yeah.
And trust with their client.
Trust is huge.
I'm curious, though, how does the Spanish legal system compare to other countries? Are there any like unique quirks or challenges when it comes to contracts under Spanish law?
Yeah, that's a good question. So while the basic principles of contract law, they're pretty much universal.
Okay.
There are always these little nuances, these specific interpretations in each country.
Right.
For example, Spain has a civil law system.
Okay.
which is different from the common law system that you find in like the U.S. or the U.K.
Okay.
And this means that Spanish courts, they rely more on written laws and codes when they're interpreting contracts rather than, on previous court decisions like they do in common law systems.
So even though the basic building blocks of a contract, they might be, similar across different systems, the devil's in the details.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the specifics.
It seems like having, local legal expertise is absolutely crucial.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when you're dealing with like complicated agreements or transactions that cross borders.
Yeah, it's almost like learning a new language. You might know like the basic vocabulary,
right?
But really understanding those subtle nuances, the idioms,
right?
It can make a huge difference.
That's a great analogy. So even if we're not planning on doing business in Spain, this deep dive into Spanish contracts, it's giving us like a really valuable perspective on how legal systems can be different.
Totally.
And why it's so important to to get expert advice when you're in unfamiliar territory.
Absolutely, yeah. And, this brings us back to something we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Why should you care about contract law?
Yeah, that's a great point. We've been exploring, the what, the how, but let's really get into the why for our listeners. Why is understanding this stuff so important, even if we're, not lawyers or Spanish legal experts?
Well, think about it. Contracts they're like the backbone of so many things in our lives. It's not just about, huge business deals or international transactions.
Right.
They're part of our everyday interactions.
Yeah.
Buying coffee, renting an apartment, clicking agree on those terms and conditions online. I mean, we're constantly entering into agreements
all the time.
Sometimes without even realizing it.
That's so true. It's like we're living in this world built on contracts.
Yeah.
But most of us, we're just navigating it blindly without really understanding like the rules of the game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where understanding this stuff becomes so powerful. It's not about, becoming a legal expert overnight.
Right.
But it's about developing like this basic understanding of how contracts work, what to look for, and how to protect yourself.
So it's like leveling up our contract literacy, so to speak, equipping ourselves with the tools to navigate this complex world with more confidence and awareness.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not just about avoiding legal trouble, right?
I think it's bigger than that.
Understanding contract law can help you make like better decisions.
Absolutely.
Negotiate better terms and even resolve disputes more effectively.
For sure.
So it's about empowerment, not just about avoiding risk.
Exactly.
It's
about taking control.
Yeah, taking control. Think about it. When you understand the elements of a valid contract, consent, object, cause, you're better equipped to spot like potential problems.
Totally.
Ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And just make sure that any agreement that you're getting into, it's fair and mutually beneficial.
Yeah, it's like having this secret weapon, in your back pocket.
Yeah, the power of knowledge.
The power of knowledge, exactly.
It makes you think twice before, just blindly signing those online agreements or rushing into a deal without really understanding the terms.
For sure.
And it's not just about protecting yourself either.
Right.
Understanding these principles can also help you build stronger relationships.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. The connection to like personal relationships.
Yeah.
How does contract law play a role there? Well, even though we don't usually, sign formal contracts with our friends and family,
right?
The principles of agreement, of clarity, of mutual understanding, they're still super important.
Yeah.
Think about, making plans with friends.
Right.
Agreeing to share responsibilities with roommates, or even, setting expectations in a romantic relationship.
So it's about bringing that same level of intentionality and clear communication to all our interactions, even the informal ones.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like creating a friendship contract, even if it's not, written down.
Right. Exactly.
It helps you avoid those awkward moments later on.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And this contract lens, it can even be helpful in resolving disagreements.
Oh, for sure.
Instead of, getting all emotional.
Yeah.
Try framing the issue in terms of the original agreement.
Yeah.
What were the expectations? Where did things break down? It can lead to more productive conversations.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about taking a step back.
Right.
And looking at the situation objectively.
Right, yeah.
Using those contract principles as a guide.
Exactly. It can de-escalate the tension and help you find a solution that everyone can agree on.
A win-win.
Yeah, a win-win. Now, remember, we've been looking at Spanish contract law as a foundation.
Right.
But these core principles, they have a much broader application.
Yeah. They're pretty universal.
We've been using texto pegado as our guide here.
Yes.
But this isn't legal advice.
No, not at all.
And laws, they change from place to place.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's important to remember that.
This deep dive is about giving you knowledge,
Empowering you.
yeah. not making you a legal expert.
Right, exactly.
Always seek professional advice when you're dealing with, complicated legal issues.
Yeah, that's key.
So it's like having a basic understanding of first aid.
Right.
It's super useful,
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself.
Definitely not.
Right.
No.
So use this knowledge wisely.
Right.
Know your limits,
Mhm.
and don't hesitate to reach out to the professionals when you need to.
Exactly. Good advice.
Okay, this has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We started by, demystifying contracts, uncovering those essential elements,
Yeah.
consent, object, and cause.
Right.
Then we talked about how this knowledge applies not only to, legal stuff,
Yeah.
but to everyday interactions.
Right, like we were just talking about.
Friendships and even conflict resolution.
That's all connected.
And even though we used, Spanish legal services
Yeah.
and texto pegado as our starting point.
Or jumping off point.
Yeah, the principles we've talked about, they're universally relevant.
Absolutely. No matter where you are in the world.
So next time you're about to, shake hands or click agree,
Uh-huh.
remember what we've learned today.
Yeah.
Take a moment to think about the underlying agreement.
Right.
Communicate clearly.
True.
Make sure everyone's on the same page.
That's key.
It might just save you a lot of hassle down the road.
It might.
And who knows? It might even make your relationships a little bit stronger.
It's a win-win.
It is a win-win. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
And until next time, happy contracting.
So let's talk strategy.
Right.
What are some real ways we can actually use this knowledge about contracts?
All right, let's get tactical. How can we put this contract lens to work in real life?
Okay, first you got to kind of shift your mindset. Start noticing all the agreements around you.
Mm-hmm.
Even the subtle ones, like
Right.
buying groceries,
Mm-hmm.
getting your car fixed, borrowing a book from a friend.
Right.
They all have these elements of contracts going on.
That's a good point. It's like becoming aware of this hidden language that's always been there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And once you see it,
Right.
you can start, speaking it better.
Okay.
So next time you're about to sign something,
Uh-huh.
don't just, skim over the fine print.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, are the terms clear?
Yeah.
Do I really understand what I'm supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
and what the other person's supposed to do?
Right.
Does this seem fair?
Yeah.
Or is there something that feels a little off?
So it's about being more active in the process.
Yeah.
Not just, passively accepting whatever's put in front of me.
Exactly. It's about, looking out for yourself,
Right.
even in those small transactions.
Right.
Now, imagine you're buying a used bike from someone online.
Yeah.
You agree on a price, but then you meet up and the bike's way worse than they described it.
Oh no.
If you hadn't, talked about all those details beforehand,
Yeah.
you're kind of stuck.
That's a perfect example. It shows how, even a casual transaction can go bad
Yeah.
if there's not that clear understanding from the beginning.
Exactly. Or let's say you're planning a trip with some friends.
Okay, fun.
It's exciting, but things can get messy without clear communication.
Right.
Talking about like who's booking what, how you're splitting the costs,
Yeah.
even like what kind of travel style everyone likes.
Yeah.
That's basically laying the groundwork for a smooth and fun experience.
It's like you're making this friendship contract,
Yeah.
even if it's just a casual conversation.
Exactly.
It helps you avoid all those awkward moments later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this whole contract lens idea,
Yeah.
it can even be helpful in resolving disagreements.
Oh, interesting.
Instead of, getting all emotional.
Right.
Try to think about the issue in terms of the original agreement.
Okay.
Like what were the expectations?
Yeah.
Where did the breakdown happen?
Right. Yeah.
This can help you have, more productive conversations.
Yeah. It's like taking a step back and looking at things objectively.
Yeah.
Using those contract principles as a guide.
Exactly.
It can really, really help de-escalate the tension.
For sure.
And help you find a solution that works for everybody.
Absolutely. Now, it's important to remember we've been focusing on Spanish contract law here.
Right.
At kind of a starting point.
Yeah, foundation.
But these core principles, they really apply pretty much everywhere.
Right. We've been using Texto Pagado as our guide.
Yes.
But this isn't legal advice.
No, not at all.
And laws, they're different depending on where you are.
Exactly. Laws vary from place to place.
So this deep dive, it's about empowering you with knowledge.
Yes, giving you the tool.
Not turning you into a lawyer.
Exactly. It's about awareness, not expertise.
Right. Always get professional advice if you're dealing with, some serious legal issues.
Absolutely. When in doubt, talk to an expert.
It's like knowing like basic first aid.
Okay.
Super useful.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't try to perform surgery on yourself.
No, definitely not. Leave that to the professionals.
Right, exactly. So use this knowledge wisely.
Be smart about it.
Know your limits, and don't be afraid to reach out to the experts when you need them.
Good advice. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, this has been a fantastic deep dive.
It really has. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
It's been fascinating.
We started by breaking down contracts.
Yeah.
Figuring out those essential elements, consent, object, and cause.
Right, the big three.
And then we talked about how this knowledge it doesn't just apply to, legal stuff.
Right.
It applies to everyday life.
It's everywhere.
To our friendships, even to how we resolve conflicts.
It's all connected.
And even though we used, Spanish legal services, Texto Pagado as our jumping off point.
Or inspiration.
Yeah, these principles that we've talked about, they're relevant no matter where you are.
Absolutely. Universal principles.
So next time you're about to, shake on a deal or click I agree. Remember everything we've learned today.
Think it through.
Yeah. Take a moment to think about the agreement.
Yeah.
Communicate clearly.
Be upfront.
Yeah, make sure everyone's on the same page.
That's key.
It might just save you a lot of trouble later on.
It might.
And who knows, it might even make your relationships a little bit stronger.
It's all about those win-win situations.
It is. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
And thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, happy contracting.